If you want to solve crime, you meet people with material conditions. But that is not in the interest of the capitalist class. Not at all. They'd rather build a police state because it's more profitable for them to do that, because they have something called a prison industrial complex, where they are paid per person they have held up in a prison cell. Look how much you got police officers who make bank. Don't ever buy the myth that police officers are struggling. They make way more than your ass. They make like 3 times more than teachers do. They have fat pensions. It's an entire scheme. Compare the two societies, and you can't blame me for sipping for China for just a little bit as an American. We have one government that is building, creating record amount of, they pulling record amount of people out of poverty. They're living in the future. They have these amazing infrastructure programs. They have amazing education programs. They have these universities for seniors. I'm gonna see if I can find this. I want to ask Jason Smith about this. There's it's a society that is actually providing for their people, where 90% of millennials own their own homes. Meanwhile, in America, we're struggling with mass homelessness crisis. And if you've seen the debate, because there's a debate about crime in America right now, and it is the most deeply unserious debate you can possibly witness in the United States of America, because Republicans are pretending that the reason why there's a crime surge in the United States is because Democrats are too weak on policing, as if they have not been funding major police institutions like the LAPD, NYPD to record amounts. The Capitol Police is being funded. It was funded under Joe Biden a record amount under Joe Biden. And remember, AOC voted for this. Meanwhile, Republicans in the entirety of America is like, hey man, why is there so much crime? Why do I feel unsafe? So think about the contrast. In the United States, they're not even trying to look at the root cause of what causes crime. Their solution is straight up rank authoritarianism. We're going to have military in the streets. We're going to have insane incarceration rates. Meanwhile, in China, their homicide rate dwarfs, or I think it's like 10 times lower than the United States. And people like to wonder why that is. It's because it's a crude statement that I made up that I like to say ever since my time in 10 Demands. I know it's crude, but it meant to prove a point. I always tell people niggas are not gangbanging in the suburbs. When you have a society where everyone have a shared vision and a shared goal, where everyone is given a job where they are paid well, if you are part of those millennials, let me fact check myself again. I don't want to misspeak. China, millennials, home ownership. So I see one that says 70%. I just want to fact. I don't want to overstate it. I see one that says 78%. So 78% home ownership in China if you're a millennial. If you own a home, you think that person is gangbanging? If you got a lawn to take care of and shit? If you got investments? No, that's not happening. People who gangbang, people who resort to crime, are people who've been driven to a point of desperation in our society. Yes, you have crazy people, but the amount of crazy people you have essentially matches the baseline that every single country has to deal with. So China has a homicide rate 10 times lower than we are because those are essentially the crazy people they can't control. But if you take those people out of the equation, you're talking about a very, very small percent of the population who just fucking mad, who, if you meet their needs, if you meet their wants, if they have a shared goal, let's say they're a construction worker and they have a vision of helping our society build and launch the United States into the 21st century. If you have education programs, like imagine if we was promoting people going to school and bettering themselves instead of going to debt to do so. They will have that shared vision. What reason would they have to sell dime bags in these scenarios? And you don't see that in suburban areas. You don't see this in well-off areas. So to me, when you see the history of humanity, when you see societies, and when you see how the fact that people's quality of life go up, crime go down, how is that not the immediate reaction? If you want to solve crime, you meet people with material conditions. But that is not in the interest of the capitalist class. Not at all. They'd rather build a police state because it's more profitable for them to do that, because they have something called a prison industrial complex, where they are paid per person they have held up in a prison cell. Look how much you got police officers who make bank. Don't ever buy the myth that police officers are struggling. They make way more than your ass. They make like 3 times more than teachers do. They have fat pensions. It's an entire scheme. You have third-party contractors who make bank for building prisons. So instead of actually having a functioning society, they'd rather have a society for peasants who struggle, who suffer, and then lock them up. This is the reality of the capitalist system that we have. Every 5 to 8 years, you're going to have a massive financial boom that leaves a massive amount of the people struggling. So for the people who believe that, all you gotta do is hustle and grind, Nick. Don't you know what I gotta do? Hustle, grind, get on top of my game, buy that house. Nigga, you know how many black people did that? You want to know what happened to all the hustle and grind black people who bought a house? The fucking housing market tanked and they lost all their wealth. And that's how they trick exploited workers who think they're capitalists. Toxic hustle and grind culture only meant to make the capitalist class more money. So the system is designed to crash. You guys must understand that. So when you guys see these market crashes every 5 to 8 years, that is not an accident. During the COVID crash, we've seen a record amount of wealth transferred to from the bourgeoisie, top 1% managerial class, from the working class in human history. The same with 2008. It is as and it is by design. And then what the capitalists believe, they believe in an unbelievably dystopian view of economics, where they say, well, if we have a trickle-down model, now trickle-down economics have taken a massive hit in terms of PR, so they don't ever call it that. Like, you will never hear a J.D. Vance say he advocates for trickle-down economics. You will never hear Nick Fuentes. You will never hear a right-wing populist say they support trickle-down economics. But that is inherently what their policies enable. Their economic policy comes from the utopian idea that if we give money to the rich, if businesses are booming, if the top 1% are fat and they are healthy, they are making record amount of profit, then out of the kindness of their own heart, for no other reason, not for profit, out of the kindness of their own heart, they will invest in the people. They might even take some of the extra money that they're making and invest in infrastructure projects. Why should we have a 10-year plan like China when we can rely on Bill Gates? When we can rely on some private real estate developer? We can rely on the whims of the capitalist class. And if it sounds silly to you, it should. That is the whole idea of capitalism. When you have a system where the only goal is to create never-ending wealth for the capitalist class. And the idea is by doing so, the capitalists will create an infrastructure for society that will work. And has that been working thus far? The only thing that happened is the capitalist class not only extorted wealth and extracted wealth from the working class, they are leaving record amount of Americans into debt. Which is why I started my monologue in our show today about economics. I'm going to have my friend Jason Smith on from China. We're going to talk about the difference between our model and the Chinese model. So under the utopian trickle-down economic philosophy, we give all the money, we plan our society to benefit the rich. So that's why I reject the idea that communism, and I advocate for all socialists and communists to speak like this as well. I reject the idea that communism is the only ideology that has central planning. What we need to explain to people, and how I explain it to people, is that capitalism is central planning. All government systems are inherently central planning. That's how government works. That's how state works. Your mind has been propagandized. So under a communist society, under a socialist society, we centrally plan to uplift our people out of poverty, and we want to empower the working class. We want to advance humanity into the future by creating infrastructure projects that will put people to work. We want to untap the potential of humanity by dropping the bullshit about never-ending profits, and let's decide what's best for our society, and let's put people to work. Let's uplift people's quality of life. So people are like, no, Nick, that's central planning. Capitalism is central planning. How do they centrally plan? They have corporate bailouts, which is designed to save the profits of the capitalist class after they fuck up. We start wars. We have giant military industrial complex because we centrally plan our society in a way that maximizes profits for the people who got stocks in arm industries. So I don't know if any communist will agree with me on this phrasing here, but I have reached a lot of people explaining, like, bro, what we're advocating for is coherent central planning that actually benefits people. So with that said, how does student loans benefit our society? I just explained in a comprehensive way how we, as a service economy, you, the small business owner who relies on consumers, are being hurt because the purchasing power of the most reliable spending block, people who just got college degrees, are deeply hampered because of the student loan debt crisis. But Americans are so deeply economically illiterate, they don't understand that people's spending is the core of our economy. So they will say stupid shit. You see right-wingers say stupid shit all the time. If you took out a loan, you should pay it back. Regarding the loan sharks that engage in fraudulent behavior against the entire generation of Americans. Christians who are supposed to speak out against usury is now they're 100% okay with loan sharks trapping an entire generation at the detriment of our society. Do you guys understand how broken your brain has to be to believe in capitalist ideology? Because this is what they believe. They rather sacrifice everything. Fuck the housing market. Young people can't afford homes. Fuck it. Fuck the car industry. And I know this personally because I used to sell cars. I never sold any motherfucking cars to people my age. I made half my commission off of rich white people buying a Toyota Highlander. There'll be a rich white dude buying a fucking Toyota 4Runner. That's how I make all my money. Whenever I see a working class person, I'm like, man, I'm fucked. They're not buying a car. They probably got student loans. And you got a bunch of dipshit capitalists who approve of this like clapping seals. Yes, we want every single facet of the market to be strangled to benefit who? A very small percentage of capitalist loan sharks. You guys see how our values are inherently different? You guys see how they led this society off a cliff? And they know there's no rebounding from it. You guys think they got a plan B? They don't. It's called their fucking bunker. It's called creating never-ending war and we are entering the Chinese century. They have no fucking plan for the rise of China. Because how are we going to stop China when you put an entire population into debt? You know the population you need to compete with China's science industry, with their STEM industry. China is destroying us when it comes to STEM, when it comes to science and math. You want to know why? Because they're not punishing their young people for pursuing higher learning. So how are you going to compete with China when now people are like, man, I don't want to go to fucking school. I'm out to go to trade school. How are you going to compete with China with AI? How are we going to build high-speed rail when we got a whole generation of Americans who can't go to school, don't want to go to school because they're going to go in debt? And then even they do go to school, they graduate. What are they going to do? Are they going to be a productive member of society? Absolutely not. I can't wait to speak to my guest, Jason Smith. He's in China. I'm going to ask him about this kind of things because I'm going to show you guys this before I bring my guest in. This is actually perfect time. I'm glad you joined me. Man, that was one hell of a rant, wasn't it? Let me show you guys this. Because Jason, I don't know if you've seen this. Guys, I don't know if you guys seen this, but the cope from capitalists trying to convince Americans that things are not as I just described it. The incoming Chinese century, how the Chinese working class have it much better than we do. So you have these series of articles. I want to get y'all to Safria's Talks here, one of my mutuals. He wanted to highlight it to me. Big shout out to them. How you have all these headlines where they are describing the low costing living that Chinese workers benefit from, and they're trying to spin it as a bad thing. Look, China's price wars lead to free food. Free food, guys. Oh my God, the whore. Half-price designer bags. Deep discounts have become a symptom of China's economic slowdown. So people in China getting discounts, that's a sign of their economic slowdown. People in China able to afford living. They were able to afford housing. Look, $1.80 dinners and budget clothes. The spread of frugality is hurting the China's economy. You mean the fact that they are not fucking nickel and dime to death? Is that what you're celebrating, capitalist? China's rental market flooded with listings as rent continues to slide. China's renting housing market is facing an unusual squeeze this summer. Listings are soaring while rents keep falling. So the rent is falling in China, and they are fucking describing this as a bad thing. So more people, it's easier to live in China. That's a bad thing. You know why Americans view this as a bad thing? Because the only thing they care about is the profit of real estate developers. And I will have China. I think Jason Smith knows way more than this than me. I've done a lot of reading about the China housing market, but this is all by design. And Jason, feel free to correct me while I'm bringing you in on this. But this is all by design by the Chinese government to decrease the cost of housing for the Chinese people. Because what is their main goal when you have a central planning model that is rooted in Marxist-Leninism? It is to make life better for the working class, not the fucking landlord class. So you have to see how just the dropping of the rent is the worst thing possible. And I can keep going. I think he put another thread here. Big shout out to this guy. Look, Beijing's deflation dilemma, falling prices. Isn't this what Americans voted for? I thought Americans wanted falling prices. This is in March, guys. Look, this is the Beijing dilemma. The falling prices signal bigger troubles ahead for the China's economy. You guys see, I'm having a fun time with this. The laughing is how I cope. Because Americans, their brains are so broken. They're like, imagine going through decades of capitalist, anti-China, anti-communist propaganda. They have no idea what is going on. They have no idea that our system is designed to crush them. It is not designed to create upward mobility. Isn't that what the capitalist class used to brag about? This will be my last thought, and I'll bring Jason in. The capitalist class used to brag about the idea of upward mobility. Oh, we're the capitalists. What we do, we uplift the working class out of poverty. You guys realize they don't even try to make that argument anymore? Now, if you mention the idea that you want to lift up people out of poverty, they call you a fucking filthy communist. That used to be the capitalist dream. That is what they used to sell capitalism as. But now we are in such a late stage of capitalism, they don't even pitch it as we're lifting people out of poverty. They pitch it as, hey man, you got a 1 out of billion chance of becoming a millionaire and becoming one of us. Hey, how about you become a cop or a soldier? Hey, if you become part of the war machine, we pay for your education. Hey, you want to kill some brown people overseas for us? Hey, we take care of you if you do that. Hey, if you become a cop and you step on someone's neck, if you tear gas your fellow Americans, if you break the rail strike, we're going to give you a pension, bro. You want to join the forces of oppression?